Normal. It's just like we usually are in the library, but today I'm in here because of the book fair. So we're going to be talking about the weather. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, but before we can get started, there's a few rules we have to set so we can have a good time, right? Yeah. Okay, so rule number 1 is when I'm talking, you're listening. Okay, is that easy enough? Yeah. Okay, good. So when someone else is talking, you should go on level 0. That's rule number 2. Rule number 3 is, if you have a question, what should you do? Raise your hand. Come on, you guys are already too smart for me. Okay, so when I'm talking, you're listening. When someone else is talking, we're on level 0, right? And if we have a question, we're just going to raise our hand. Easy enough, right? Yeah. So we're going to have a good time? Yeah. Oh, that's pitiful. Are we going to have a good time? Yeah. Much better. Okay, so have you guys been talking about weather at all? Yeah. A little bit? Yeah. A little bit? Okay, so let's do a KWL chart. How about that? Do you mind if I?
That's fine. And you can move that chart also.
Okay. All right. Isn't that kind of small? Huh? That's not going to be helpful. Let's do what we know first, and then we'll build the rest of it. So what do we know about weather? Yes.
Weather is one time I heard that hurricane can be dangerous. All kinds of weather can be dangerous.
All kinds of weather can be dangerous. Okay.
Sometimes
Can be cold. So we have danger. We have cold. Let's see it. This table right here for me.
Sometimes weather can be really hot.
It can be really hot. That's true. It can be cold. It can be hot. Right in your right.
Sometimes when it's hot, sometimes your head starts to hurt.
Okay, so maybe you can start feeling sick if it's too hot, yes? So I'm just going to put sick by hot, all right? What about this sick? It can get chilly? Okay, so we're going to put chilly kind of with cold. Anybody else know a few other things about weather?
It can be warm.
It can be warm. Okay, warm's kind of hot, so we're going to stick with that. What about right here?
It can rain that hard.
It can rain. There we
Or
go.
it can make a hail.
Oh, very good. So we have rain, we have hail, we have, what are some other things that happen?
Sometimes rain makes lightning.
Lightning. So we have lightning, we're talking about a storm. There you go, exactly. Now, what are those little white things that kind of fall? We call it something with the S, rhymes with mo.
Snow.
No, there you go. All right. Okay, so we know a few things about weather. We know that it can be dangerous. We know that weather can be cold, it can be warm, it can be hot, it can be chilly. It can rain, it can hail, it can storm, it can snow. So what do we want to know today? What do we want to learn? You got okay, keep thinking.
How the hell can make ice?
Okay, so we'll say how hail and ice works.
When snow comes, how do the snow it goes? When it's in the grass, when we wake up the next morning,
Okay. Put snow. What happens? So you want to know what happens after it snows, right? table? You forgot? Okay, let me get a few more right here. Oh, right behind you. Go ahead. How does cold... Okay, so you want to learn about ice, right? Okay, let me get one more. Right here.
How does the tornado work?
Okay, so I'm not sure if we're going to cover all of these things today, but I am sure that we are going to learn a lot more about the things we know, and hopefully be able to answer these questions, the things we want to know. So before I get right into it, I want to ask you a question. And I know you guys are smart, so you're going to know the answer to this. I have a plate right from my house. I have a plate and I have an umbrella. Now, if it's getting ready to rain, what do I need? A plate?
No.
Or an umbrella?
Umbrella.
Umbrella. I mean, you guys are smart. What if I told you a story about a place where instead of needing an umbrella, they needed a plate? Would you believe me?
No.
No? Okay, I figured that. That's why I brought the book with me. And the book is actually called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Have you heard of it? See, I knew it would come. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to call you table by table, and we're going to come sit on the carpet so I can read to you, okay? All right, let me get you guys right here. And just have a seat, maybe starting on that green line for me. Perfect. This table right here. All right, my table in the middle and you in the back. Come on. Okay, this table right here. Remember? I didn't think we talked on level 0, did we? I didn't think so. I've been here for a while. I didn't think that we did that. Okay. Here we go. So this book is called, as I said, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And don't worry, I'll move the book around so everyone can see the pictures, okay? This is written by Judy Berry and drawn by Ron Berry. So maybe it has been a while thing. Same as, you know. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat. And Grandpa was doing the flipping.
Oh, he must be missing.
Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. After we realized that the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventfully. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry.
Ew. Ew. She must have hair in there. Oh.
It might. Maybe Henry ate his own, right? That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tell-all bedtime story he'd ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of huge bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow.
Chew and swallow? What's a chew and swallow? They must chew. It's like jello. They must chew and swallow.
In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses, and trees, and gardens around them. A schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. They didn't need any. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. everything that everyone ate came from the sky.
Ew. Oh, it's raining food. That's
Good.
Yeah.
So let's see what happens. Whatever the weather. Are we ready? Okay.
Yes.
Whatever the weather served, that was what they ate. But it never rained snow. It never rained snow. And it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers.
Oh, we're having hamburgers today. Yeah. Or cheeseburgers.
Cool. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would have a prediction of what the next day's food would be. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in the refrigerators in case they got hungry between meals. So as you can see in the picture, they're at baseball games. They're out and about, and they're just eating. Just catching food. And umbrellas.
For soup and umbrellas. And a dog.
The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast. Butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankfurters, already in their rows, blew in from the northeast at about 5 miles per hour. There were mustard clouds nearby. Then the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished off the meal.
At least a hot dog.
Excuse me, guys in the back, are y'all? You with me? Okay, just making sure. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops becoming heavy at times with occasional ketchup. Periods of peas and baked potatoes were followed by gradual clearing with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on the houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the dogs and cats. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flowers and gardens. So after the food was all done, the sanitation people would give it to put in the ocean and then put in the ground to grow. Let the plants and flowers grow. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worse. One day there was nothing but Gorgonzola cheese all day long. That's this picture. The next day there was only broccoli all overcooked. Ugh. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts and peanut butter with mayonnaise. Ugh. Another day there was pea soup. Ew, pea soup fall. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that got stuck in the fog. Could you imagine?
Yep, I saw the people tasty.
I don't know. I think I like our weather a lot better. Let's see. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. I'll wait. Thank you. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. One Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long into the night. They were soft rolls and hard rolls, some without seeds and some with. There was bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread and rolls before. It was a terrible day. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds picked at it a bit, but it just stayed there and got staler and staler.
What's that?
That means it got old, it got hard. Have you ever seen stale bread?
Yes.
It's old, it's hard, you can't even eat it. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup and nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Can you imagine a big pancake full of Archer? That's a good.
Yeah. You can get after school and start eating it.
I'm about to say you guys will probably start eating it, right?
With some syrup.
Lunch one day brought 15-inch strips of cream cheese. Okay, you can't listen if you're talking. Lunch one day brought 15-inch strips of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick and the day ended with a stomach ache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by an even worse tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid the tomatoes. The town was a mess. There were seeds and pulp everywhere.
I see a guy in the bathtub.
I know.
He's a white man.
That's what happens in a tornado.
I was using the bathroom.
The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses had been badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up and there were no more schools for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. You can see the picture. The food is taking over the town.
Ooh, and I see some pork chops. I see
Okay, everybody, have a seat. Have a seat. The people glued together the giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style and peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. So they used that giant food.
That's the shark eating.
To make some ships.
The shark's eating.
Oh goodness. Let's see if they make it where they need to be. Ooh.
The shark's going.
After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in a new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at a supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were not made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the very end of Grandpa's story. I remembered his goodnight kiss.
Good.
Let's see. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sliding down the hill, we thought we saw a giant pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes.
That's supposed to be hot. What if it snowed mashed potatoes? What if
it did? Maybe it was mashed potatoes.
What if it's It was mashed potatoes.
It was mashed potatoes. So now we know that weather really doesn't rain food, right? We know it doesn't snow gravy, it doesn't hurricane tomato soup, right? So let's learn about what really happens in weather, okay? So I'm going to ask everyone to quietly go back to your seats, okay? Okay, quietly means no talking. You don't have to talk to get to your seat. We should be sitting down. We should be at level 0. I should have eyes on me. Everybody listen up here? Perfect. Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
You know what?
So we're going to learn about, we've learned about some fictional weather, right? We've learned about snowing, food, and things of that nature. But now we're going to get right into the real weather. That's kind of a weird thing to say. Real weather, okay? So so we can learn a little bit more about what we already know and what we want to learn, okay? So this book is called Wild Weather. And it's pretty big, so you should be able to see it, right? So this is the cover, you guys know that. Now there's something special about this. Let's say I wanted to get to a specific place in the book and I didn't want to have to read the whole thing. What could I use? Okay, almost. There's something right over here. You could use the index, but there's something else. The table of contents, very good. So I'm going to use the table of contents. They have it already up here for me. So we're going to be talking about tornadoes. We're going to be talking about wild weather, drought and dust storms, other wild weather, volcanoes in the weather, and people who study the weather, okay? Now, does anybody know what we call this first page? There's a name for it. They call it the
Title.
It usually would be the title page. Very good. This one doesn't talk about the title, but yes, that would be what we're going to do. So let's see. Tornado on the way. People have rushed to find shelter and get ready for the storm that's coming. Or tornado is a good example of wild weather. Tornadoes can strike anywhere at any time, but mostly they hit the Midwestern or southern states during the late spring and early summer months. Most tornadoes strike in the afternoon or evening. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
I know. I did.
I did. Raise your hand if you've ever been in a tornado. You have? Okay. Okay, put your hands down. Thank you. A tornado is called a twister. Winds are the most powerful on Earth. They swirl around in a funnel shape at speeds as high as 300 miles per hour. That's very fast, very fast. Most tornadoes form on hot, humid days when a cool, dry mass of air pushes against a warm, wet mass of air. Tall, puffy thunderclouds called cumulus clouds develop where the air masses meet. Okay, because right here is a picture of a tornado. And this, you probably guys can't see it. You're walking around at the bottom. Right, that's what can happen after a tornado. Right here at the bottom. So tornadoes can be destructive. Somebody said dangerous. That was very good.
Really can be dangerous. There was a tornado on my grandfather's house, and we needed to stop. We had a car to deal with.
Right.